don't overthink this question. What intuitively comes to mind, where do you currently feel tension in your body? Straightforward question. Whereabouts do you feel tense or stress or tension in your body more generally? Is it in your head? Is it in your jaw and your neck? Is it your shoulders, your lower back, your hips, your feet? Just have a quick little body scan right now, and whereabouts is it? That's particularly important for this video because what we are doing is, rather than just accepting that unconsciously as a part of who we are, it's learning how to bring that into our conscious mind so that we can do something about it. Because if we don't, then it's going to pull the strings behind the scenes, and it's going to have a big impact on our emotional health and our mental health, as well as our physical health, because these are all very, very interlinked. So I'm going to be quoting from a book that I've recommended on this channel before, which is Pleasure by Alexander Lowen, to help structure and frame this question and this idea. So just to quote directly from page 23, and then what we'll do is we'll unpack that and start to see how it's relevant and what we should actually do about it as well. So page 23. Through these muscular tensions, conflicts become structured in the body. When this happens, they cannot be resolved until the tensions are released. To release these muscular tensions, one must feel them as a limitation of self-expression, which is particularly important. It is not enough to be aware of their pain, and most people are not aware of that. When a muscular tension becomes chronic, it is removed from consciousness, and one loses an awareness of the tension. That's particularly important, and what we need to do is we need to have a system in place and a practice in place where we can actually start to become aware very, very early on about where those tensions are in our body so that we can work through them. Because we can't just passively accept them and live with them, because what's going to happen is over years it's going to snowball. They're going to start to build on each other. What'll happen is it'll start to affect our identity as well. Rather than just having a headache, we'll start to talk about ourselves as, oh, I've always had headaches. I'm that type of person. And that's not necessarily true. I've always had backache. I've had it as long as I can remember. You might have had it for a few years, but you might not have been born with backache. It might have developed at one point and you're not quite sure why it happened. But now that we're aware of it, maybe we should start to be able to manage that process rather than have it dominate our lives. It's something I'm extremely aware of because I do a lot of running, which is what we're going to start to talk about in a second, which is having a physical practice in place to be able to become aware of them. Because of running, I'm extremely aware of wherever there is going to be a small tension or a small imbalance because I can feel it automatically and there's something I should do about it. But before we even talk about that, just to backtrack a little bit, I'm someone who has lived a lot of my life disassociated to some degree. Whether that was throughout my childhood or my teenage years or becoming, I suppose, addicted to screens and technology in general in my 20s, I've reduced my life down as being somewhere away from my body. And as a result, getting back into the body can be quite difficult, especially when there is a tension which is uncomfortable and that I'd rather not think about. So one thing that has been extremely useful for me is having a physical practice in place, which is something which isn't talked about all that much in circles which discuss emotional health, mental health, spiritual health. It's worth understanding that all of this has still got to be grounded in the physical body. Our spiritual health, our emotional health starts originally in the physical self, and we need to become very, very aware of that. One thing that was very, very useful for me, especially in my earlier life, when I started to think about my identity at university, I arrived at university as a thin man, a very skinny man. I was very, very underweight and I was very weak. And as a result, I wanted to get a little bit bigger to be able to feel more like a man, because that's how 18-year-old Billy was thinking at that point in time. But that meant going to the gym and being very intimidated, not just by everybody else there, but also by the weights that are on the bar and having to overcome that awkwardness of struggling to lift the empty barbell off the rack. That was embarrassing for me. But over time, I started to become more aware of that. And also, it started to affect how I approached fear as well. Because if we start to consider even just one exercise like a deadlift, so a deadlift is when you've just got the bar on the ground and your job is to, if you're not used to lifting, lift it to hip height and then drop it back to the ground. That's one repetition. So all we're doing there is literally just picking something up and putting it back down. But if you start to progressively load a lift like that, it gets to a stage quite quickly where you're lifting quite a lot of weight. And that can become very intimidating. If you're already in a bad mood that day, or you're already feeling a little bit scared that day, then seeing a bar like that and realizing you could fail it in front of a lot of other people, it's not just a physical issue there, it's a mental issue. It's also an emotional issue. It's who am I to be able to overcome a problem like this? And in doing all of that, then my body would it would break down in a healthy way. There'd be micro tears in the muscles. I'd become stronger, and I'd be able to repeat that process over and over again. But that physical part of me is directly related to the emotional part, which is directly related to the mental part. All of this is based on me having a grounded awareness in my body so that I can actually express myself. Remember, that was the whole point of this. It's being aware of these chronic tensions as limitations to our self-expression. Although I don't powerlift anymore, I do still weightlift, but I don't powerlift anymore. Now I do a lot of running and a lot of sprinting. And that process of moving through space, especially like with a purpose as well, then you become very alive. You become very aware of what's also blocking you physically from achieving a goal like this. So even just being sat down at home now, like sat down in a chair, I can feel it in my right calf. There's a bit of tension there. I can feel it a little bit in my right ankle now. I'm aware of it as well. I'm aware that my shoulders are rounded a little bit more compared to the start of this video. And I'm not judging myself for any of this. I'm just noticing it so that that doesn't bother me, so that it doesn't start to have an impact on the rest of my day. Rather than this being a situation where by the end of the day, I could end up being miserable or quite sore and in pain, I can just correct it within a few seconds of being aware of it. And that's the whole point of this. It's becoming aware through having a physical practice about what is out of balance and how can you correct that. So it's fantastic that you might have a practice in place at this point in time for meditation, for journaling, for speaking to other people, for reading, whatever else it might be. But don't neglect the physical body in all of this as well, because some of those tensions that you feel will then start to bleed out into other parts of your life. And if we can start to deal with that as early as possible, then it's going to become a lot more useful. So my suggestion to anybody who is wondering where to begin with something like this, I would say weightlifting and running have both enormously helped me from a physical line. Things, if you are wondering where to begin on this, what has helped me there? Weightlifting, I did starting strength, which is a 3x5 program, and I also did strong lifts, which is a 5x5 program. By all means, research them if you are interested. In terms of running, I did start with the Couch to 5K program, and now I do a lot of intervals, I do a lot of sprinting, I do a lot of long, slow running as well. I'm not going to explain a full breakdown of each of those, but just in case you're wondering about where to begin with all this, I would say, especially if you're a man listening to this, weightlifting and running would be extremely useful. Notice what it feels like to move your body through space and to feel that tension, and also to be able to overcome that tension and to learn to accept it as well, and then heal from it and recover from it so that we can do it again. It's a inherently satisfying process to build yourself up, to empty yourself out and build yourself up again and empty it all out again repeatedly over and over the course of weeks and months. But the point being with all of this is please become aware of your chronic tensions or wherever you store stress in your body, and make sure you've got a plan in place to be able to deal with that, rather than just accepting that as a part of who you are, or a part of your lot. It doesn't have to be. Get a practice in place, and then from there, then an emotional practice and a spiritual practice and a mental practice, and more on that and plenty of other videos. But mental practice, I'd say start reading. Plenty of book recommendations on this channel. Just check the pinned comment and there'll be plenty of books to get you started there.